Hey, what's up YouTube? It's Joey Troy. Today we're going to be doing AlpacaBridge. I've got you set up in my Debian environment. We're going to build drivers for the TubeTech AAF. I've got it right here. Sweet little focuser. Essentially, I have redeveloped AlpacaBridge to support SKILLZ. So if you've never heard about SKILLZ and want to know more about AI development, stay tuned and let's get started. All right, so to get started here, I essentially have GitHub set up, desktop on my VM. So just give me a second as it launches. Hopefully it launches. There we go. Okay, cool. So it's basically launched. I've already downloaded the AlpacaBridge, and just to do a little fetch just to make sure we're up to date. So basically, this is the newest version of AlpacaBridge. I haven't released it yet, but we're at version 1.0.4. And in that version, I've added SKILLZ to the repository. So what is SKILLZ? SKILLZ is a way that we basically tell AI to help us build stuff and basically develop drivers in this case. So a skill is I tell AI, hey, I want you to do this long-winded project. Please do it and follow these, basically these rules and stuff like that. So what we're going to do is we're going to swing over to the documents folder, GitHub, and then AlpacaBridge. And then essentially we're just going to launch Claude. So once Claude comes up here, it takes a second to run. And in here, we're in Claude. So one of the skills, basically all the skills can be captured by doing a /. So we're just going to do / and then driver, build, and then hit enter. And essentially, the way the skill's designed is it's going to essentially let us know, hey, what is it you're trying to do? What type of ASCOM Alpaca driver are we building today? Well, today we're going to build a focuser. So we're just going to do number 5 and hit enter. So it's going to run through and basically do everything. So now it's going to ask us for the manufacturer. So we're going to do TubeTech and hit enter. And then essentially it's going to check for existing TubeTech drivers within the AlpacaBridge suite. So it's going to see what it can find. So it found an existing driver, which is the camera. And there's also an SDK, which is inside the repository as well. And just to show you all this stuff real quick, inside the GitHub and AlpacaBridge, inside Alpaca Core, there's a section called External. And this is basically where we put all our SDKs. So if we have an SDK from a vendor, we basically put it in here. So an example, like for ZWO, they have SDKs for everything, for their electronic filter wheel, their EAF, their CAA, their camera SDK, and the AM is essentially the documentation that I have for the AM 3, 5, 5N, 7 mounts. And essentially it's just all their serial commands and stuff like that that I use to build the drivers. So in TubeTech, the only thing that we have is the TubeTech SDK, and this is really, this SDK is really only for the camera. So they didn't release any kind of driver. So, so let's see what it asks us here. So it said it found the existing drivers. Are you extending it or adding the focuser device type under? This is a new focuser. So it's going to just do some checking here. It wants to know how the focuser connects. So it connects via USB. And then essentially it's going to do some stuff. Do you have protocol docs for the TubeTech focuser? It's going to check what we already have. So it does a check in here, but we don't have SDK. So we're just going to tell it that we don't have an SDK. Oh, it's actually just continuing forward. So let's see what it's doing here. So yeah, it's just checking to see the SDK, and it's going to see that it's just the camera and stuff. So do you have an additional protocol docs or AAF, PDFs, or anything? So it's basically asking us if we have anything. We'll say we do not have any docs or SDK and hit enter. And then essentially it's going to do some more searching here and seeing what we can do. So basically at this point, what it does is it's checking the SDK a little more and seeing what else it can do. And down here, as you can see, it's going to Indy. So basically what I've done, we're going to go ahead and give it access, is I've given it access to look at the Indy library for other drivers that may be available that we can look at and build our driver based on those drivers. So it's not taking Indy's actual driver, it's just looking at the overall build on how Indy built it, and then basically it's going to take a look at it and see if we can actually build a driver based on that. So it's kind of slick on how this all puts it together, but essentially I worked with AI and wrote this skill out and basically said, hey, I want the skill to be able to do all these things, and you basically specify everything that you want it to do. So it goes in and it checks everything, checks for it checks the driver, which is already built out. So let me make this window just a little bigger. Whoops, sorry about that. So there's the windows a little bigger. So we can look at everything that it kind of is telling us right now at this point. So basically in here, so we'll go up a little higher. So basically in here, it did a full search, because I said we didn't have any docs or SDK. So basically went in and looked at Indy, it looked at the tube tech, and it creates a plan summary of basically like what it wants to do, that it builds the focuser, extending the vendor and stuff like that. Files to create, it needs to create the 4 files. So it's going to create a driver, which is the tube tech driver, the H file, the CPP file, and then also some test files. So I've also extended the testing capability so that it does way more tests based upon the Alpaca API. So it can make sure that when it's doing these tests that it's actually lining up with the test a lot better, and it builds a better driver, which gets closer to an actual final product before we even start testing it with ConformU. Which is the ASCOM ConformU tool, which allows us to make sure that our driver meets the standard of ASCOM. And I've stressed this a lot throughout my videos. So in here, it basically goes through, and the window got shrunk, so it kind of messed up some of the formatting here. But basically, it found some information about what it can do, the moving, the halt, the set 0, get position, all these things. So it basically captured a lot of information from the driver from Indy to kind of see like how Indy's controlling the driver and how we can control the driver with Alpaca. So it's going to go through and create the files that it needs to create, and then basically it's going to set all these things within the driver so it can build the driver. So it's going to create a brand new branch, which is really cool. So what it does is it automatically sets up a brand new branch, which is part of this skill, so that we don't have to do all this work. We don't have to worry about setting up a branch. We don't have to worry about finding all these detailed information about the driver when we don't have like an SDK or documentation. Now, if we have an SDK, it's much easier. It can just look at the SDK and basically build the driver out. But because we don't have an SDK for this particular focuser, we're essentially just using what Indy has and then kind of basing, like I said, our driver off of it. So it's going to basically go through and do this whole thing. It's got a full plan, how it's going to design and build everything and get it all set up. So basically it's just saying, hey, do you want to proceed with this? And we're going to go ahead and just say yes. So what it's going to do is create a new branch. So in here, as you saw in GitHub, I didn't set up a branch or anything like that. So it's going to create the branch here shortly, and then we should see the branch show up if it all works the way it's supposed to. So it's still creating the plan, so it hasn't done anything yet. So it's just basically creating the plan, and then it's going to run through and do everything. So in here, it's going to read the existing tube tech, camera, reference, focus drivers. It's going to extend the wrapper to enumerate the AAF device, implement tube tech focus headers and everything else. So we're just going to go ahead and say yes, that we wanted to do all this stuff. So it's going to go ahead and create that branch now. So it created the branch. So if we come in here, it automatically created the branch. So the branch just popped up. So it's basically going to start building out all the files based on the camera for the reference, and then the reference focus drivers that it found from Indy, and kind of like see how it can complement based on how TubeTech had their SDK designed for the camera. While the camera and the focuser are two different things, there could still be some things that it's going to find within the code that's going to help it build the driver a little more efficient. So basically, I'm going to go ahead and just let it run through here and basically crunch through all this stuff. I don't think it's important to show this. I just kind of wanted to show the skill. And as we get closer with this, I'm going to plug in the device. We're going to test it. And then essentially we'll go through and run some ConformU tests on it just to see how it does after the driver's built it. There's also some new skills that I created in here while this is going for committing. So every time that you're working on the code within AlpacaBridge, you can do a /commit. And then essentially what it does is it'll commit up the code that you've done. It goes against all the code and it updates all the files. So like the supported drivers, it'll update the supported drivers. It'll update the changelog. If it needs to, it'll update the README. It's also going to make sure that you've done your ConformU test. So like there's another one called /submit-PR. So like when you're submitting a pull request with all the changes that you made back to the main repository of AlpacaBridge, it's going to essentially run through a whole bunch of tests on that as well. So it's really cool. I won't dive too much into all that right now because I'm just going to pause the video and let this go, but I'll be right back. So I want to unpause the video just to show you kind of like that it's building this driver. So in here, it's just basically creating the driver and basically going through everything that it needs to go through to basically get everything set up. So I'm going to go ahead and let it pause and keep going. Okay, so at this point, it completed everything. It took roughly about 8 minutes and 7 seconds. So in here, it shows that all the tests have completed, that it tested the tube tech to make sure that it worked. It basically created all the new files and explained exactly what it did. And also in here, it specified what files it modified and created. So it's got the vendor CMake files, the test make, the Alpaca router. The Alpaca HTTP router is basically the router that communicates with the core, and the core is where all the drivers are written. And then essentially it created the web UI, so it modified the web UI. So when we go into AlpacaBridge in the web portal and we choose the TubeTech driver for the focuser, it'll be there. It also updated the supported drivers in the agents file based on all the findings that it found. So essentially inside the skill, I also told it, as we build stuff and we find new stuff and learn new stuff, put it in the agents file so we can go back and look at that later. So basically the AI agent can get smarter and easily find things quicker to decipher when it's building multiple drivers from multiple hardware and vendors. So essentially it's got everything done. So at this point, it's wanting to commit, so it can basically do the initial commit of what we did. So I'm going to go ahead and just do commit. And then it's going to do an initial commit of all the code that we basically built. We haven't tested anything yet, so I haven't created the PR. So we still need to validate everything's working per what it said. But at least for right now, it's going to go through and it's going to just look at the tree and everything that it built and then basically do the commit and push everything up. One thing to note is I'm using the GH command. It's an application you can install for Linux and Mac. I'd recommend developing, of course, on Debian because that's where we're building basically all the drivers and everything. So, but essentially you install GH and then basically it does an authentication to your GitHub. So it'll automatically, AI will automatically just execute and then push up the commit for you into the repository. So you don't have to do all the work of, oh, this is what we did and this is what we put together. Basically, it's putting everything together, what it puts in the changelog, and then it's basically going to commit all the information that we've done. So it's, again, I've created all these skills so we can really make development streamlined and easily create new hardware over and over and over again for new products as they come out, and if we get SDKs for them. One thing I noticed is going in here, so if we look over here, it's already committed and already should have, oh, I haven't published the branch. It doesn't publish, it just pushes all this stuff. So I'm the one that does the publish. So in here, we'll refresh now, and then we'll have the new branch, which is, why is it not there? Oh, there it is. Okay. So if we go in here, we can go to the new branch, and then essentially we can see all the stuff that's in here. So if we actually go to supported drivers in here and scroll down and go all the way down to the focusers. So if we go down here, that's for the camera. So calibrator, filter drivers, focus drivers, It's got the Gemini. It's now got the TubeTech listed, and it's listed as pending because we haven't done the ConformU test and all that. So once we get the ConformU test, it'll automatically go back and update the supported driver notes to let it know that it's been there. And then there'll also be a link like there is for the other ones where you can just basically link on it. So again, this skill is basically allowing us, like I said, to easily streamline this build process. So you don't need to be a developer to be able to build drivers, but you do need to have technical knowledge to be able to troubleshoot and basically work with AI and tell it like what we need to do. Okay, so we're back. I essentially closed out of Claude. We also need to test the code, and we also have to test the device. So I've got the TubeTech here. I'm going to grab my little USB cable and plug it in. And then I'm just going to move over here. My workstation's next to me, and I'm going to plug it in right here. So probably heard that maybe. So we're going to connect it to our virtual machine and hit OK. And then in here, we're going to go ahead and do a build run. And then essentially it's going to build the software code and then essentially get everything set up. Okay, so essentially it built everything. It's complaining about the Celestron Nexstar because I was doing some development work with the Celestron Nexstar, and essentially it's not connected anymore. So it's complaining that it's not connected. So we'll fire up a little browser here. Sure, whatever. And we're just going to go to localhost 6800. So in here, it's got the Celestron. Essentially, the Celestron's not connected anymore. So we can just delete it because it failed to load. You can't load what's not there. So in here, we're just going to go to configure. And let me just make this just a little bigger. So we're going to go to device. We're going to go to focuser. And then in here, we should now have TubeTech, which we do. And then we can go ahead and hit add device. And it should have added the device, and it sees it's got the TubeTech AAF. So in here, I'm going to open up a new tab, and I'm going to go to my download folder. All right. So now we're back into ConformU. If we go to the help file, we can see we're on version 4.3 now. So in here, we're going to select the device, and then we're going to choose our focuser. And then it's going to see the TubeTech. So we'll click that. And then one thing that I like to do is I go to the settings file here, and then I'll check the focuser and just make sure that there's no extra settings to check when I'm doing telescope stuff. Let me make this window just a little bigger, maybe even a little bigger. There we go. So in here right now, I was only doing testing at that time on the pulse guide. But usually what I'll do is I'll go to reset defaults, and it just resets the defaults for the whole application. And then in here, when I'm doing testing for telescopes, I'll make sure to do the pure read test for both the pure, basically like the side of pure on both sides. So I'm sorry, not both sides. It does a read and write, but it flips the mount to both sides of the pure and does a bunch of extra pure tests. I like to do that to make sure that the driver basically works properly with the pures. But anyways, we've got the focuser. There's no extra stuff in here. So what we'll do is we've got the device selected. Just make sure one more time. Oh, telescope. Geez, we got to go down to focuser. Focus on the focuser. And then we basically agree. And at this point, I'm going to go ahead and hit start. And then it's going to basically test everything. And I can hear the focuser moving. And I see it moving. So it looks like it's going good. So we'll see how this driver meets in terms of the ConformU test. Okay, so it basically said everything hit all the target times, and there's no issues at all with the driver. It did movements and everything, so it essentially moved from position 6400. It's also got the temperature in there. So at this point, this bad boy is done. So essentially, we've created the driver for at least testing it at least on x64. So AMD 64-bit. So I've tested it on an x64 system. What I'll do is I'll move this over to my my Raspberry Pi, and then essentially I'll do some testing on the Raspberry Pi, which is the ARM system, and then I'll do the exact same thing. I'll run another ConformU test and then verify that the device is right. So as you can see, because we've added so many extra tests now inside, essentially inside the repository, when it's building these drivers with AI and going through everything, it's building the driver from the get-go, very first time, and it works. So not only is it making sure that it meets all the Alpaca API rules and the rule set of that whole API, it's also making sure that when it's building the driver that it's actually adding more tests to verify that. So to show those tests real quick, what I'll do is I'm just going to minimize this for right now. And then we'll go ahead and we just need to shut down the server real quick. So we'll shut down the server. And then in here, what we'll do is we'll do a run all tests. And then essentially in here, it's going to run all the tests against all the hardware of all the drivers that have been built so far within the repository. So it's going to do everything from the QHY to Celestron, TubeTech, and it's essentially, I don't know if you saw that, but I'll scroll back up, but it's running a slew more tests than it used to. So like when I originally demoed this on YouTube and kind of was like showing me building with AI, it only did so many tests, but I went back and I updated the system so it's doing way more tests. So now it's doing 135 tests total for all the drivers that we have. So as you can see, it's doing multiple checks on the QHY cameras, the Player One cameras, TubeTech autofocuser. It's just basically running through a slew of different tests that it tests like everything that's going on with it. It checks the focuser, the camera drivers, telescope drivers, and it goes through and it does a bunch of tests to make sure that all of these drivers not only aren't colliding with each other within the repository, but also like when the system is getting built. On top of that, it's also going through and basically checking multiple behaviors. So in here you can see it's doing like it does like a disconnect behavior for the do hit switch, invalid switch ID, device metadata, unsupported actions. So it's taking a lot of the things that are within the Alpaca API and then essentially just testing it to make sure that it's done. So what I'll do is I'll run through and do all the ASCOM tests. We've already done it for the AMD 64, so I just need to install everything over on my little Raspberry Pi, which is behind me, and I'm going to do the tests on there. Once those tests pass and everything looks good, I'll put it all back in the repository. I'll come back and we'll do the PR. Once we do the PR, it'll put together everything that we've done and completed for the driver. It's going to push it all up to the main repository, and then it's going to use CodeRabbit to basically run against the code repository to make sure everything looks good, that we're golden, that the code meets the needs of what needs to happen. And if there's any issues that CodeRabbit has, we can go back and work with Claude and CodeRabbit to get it fixed, and I'll show that in the next segment. So give me just a minute, I'll be right back. So I've copied over the test that I did real quick. I just wanted to show this. Essentially in here, I just did a /commit, and it's just looking at everything. So it's updating all the steps and everything that's been going on. It's updating the supported drivers, that it's showing that it actually saw that we've added the new ConformU test. So essentially, I put the ConformU test inside the, it was in here in the ASCOM logs folder, and I just basically moved it over to the GitHub and then ConformU test section under TubeTech and created a new folder called AAF. So it automatically saw that I added the new file and went in and it's updating all the code automatically when I did the /commit. So if you come up here, I just launched it and then just did the /commit. I didn't even have to tell it anything, just /commit. It automatically has a skill. It goes in, it sees what changed in the code. It automatically saw right away that if you go up here, it looks, says ConformU validated cleanly, 0 errors, 0 issues on Linux. Let me update the docs, and it automatically just updates the docs because it automatically has this cool skill that I've built in here so that it does everything for us. So it went in here and did all the checks and made sure everything's good. So now it's all ready to push at this point. So it automatically pushed basically created the commit, and then I just clicked the push button to push it up. Okay, so essentially at this point, I've done all my work on the Linux side of stuff. So we'll come over here and just fetch the origin. So there's one pull I have to pull down, which is the update. So at this point, everything should be good in here. So if we want, we can open up code and open up Visual Studio Code and essentially come in here, and then we can open up the project. So we'll go to Documents, and then GitHub, and then AlpacaBridge, and open it. And then in here we can see, trust. So in here, if we look at the supported drivers, and we can actually just do a preview. If we go to the supported drivers down here, all the way down to the TubeTech AAF, in here we see we have both the Linux and the for x64 and ARM v8. So we verified everything works. If we go in here and just look at the Alpaca core and ConformU and then TubeTech and then AAF, we can see the ARM that I ran. So it shows on the ARM 64-bit. So again, when it runs these tests, it runs it based on the architecture that it's on, and then it connects to the device, and it lists the device that it's connecting to, the TubeTech AAF, and then essentially it went through and ran all the tests on it and verified everything was good, and it met all the ASCOM, basically all the response times. So everything was good. So so at this point, we basically have the driver completed. If we want, we can just make sure that everything looks good with the changelog. So we can look at the changelog real quick. In here, it's got the telescope stuff. So this is all still part of 1.04, which I haven't released completely yet. I'm also working with another developer that's been interested in the project. He lives in India and he has a lot of TubeTech hardware. So we've been working back and forth. Big shout out to Zero Astro Boy. Had to look down at my cell phone because I can't remember his name. So big shout out to my Indian brother from another mother. So in here, I've got the TubeTech AAF. He was working on, it should probably be in here. Maybe, I don't think it updated. Did it update? Let's see if it added his stuff. Oh, it hasn't added his stuff yet because I haven't merged his PR yet. But once I merge his PR, it'll update all this and have all his information and stuff. So, but essentially he's working on the electronic filter wheel, and then he's got some other cameras that he's going to be testing on. He's also got a TubeTech 2600 camera, so he's going to make sure that the dew heater works and help write drivers for that. So again, the more developers that we get working on this project, the more hardware it's going to support. The more hardware it supports, the less we're going to need to use any other solution, because the solution is 100% ConformU certified. Yay! All right. So I think that's everything. So in here, what we'll do is we'll just do a submit PR, and then essentially it's going to go ahead and put together the whole PR. It's going to look at all the commits that we've made, everything that it's going to do, and it's going to create a, well, I won't even tell you. I just want you to be surprised. So we'll give it a second here. So it's checking all the commits that we've done already. It's validating all the stuff that we've done. And the cool thing is that when you do the submit PR, it verifies that you have the ConformU test for both ARM 64 and AMD 64. So it's going to make sure everything is right, that it meets all the things that needs to be done. So at this point, it's got in the unit test, it's got all the ConformUs, there's 0 errors on both and issues, so everything looks good. And then it's basically creating a proposed PR. And then it's going to show what that PR is. It's going to show all the test plan that it thinks that it recommends doing, which we've already done. We've already done the test. We've done the validation. We verified the WebU works because we logged into it. And we also checked the physical AAF that everything was good. So at this point, no, submit. So we'll go ahead and submit it. Okay, I'm all set. So I got GH all set up and configured. So I'm going to go ahead and hit enter, and then it's going to basically submit my PR. Okay, so it already opened the PR. So if we swing over to GitHub real quick and OpenAstro, and then pull up our AlpacaBridge. In here, we can go to the pull request, and we can see the 2 pull requests. In here, I think everything looks good. I have to check some stuff with the TubeTech filter wheel, but we should have that pretty soon here added. And then essentially what it's doing right now is it's submitted it, and I can check mark all that fun stuff because that's all completed. And then essentially in here what it's doing is it's going to do a review by CodeRabbit. Okay, so essentially at this point we've got a green check mark. That means everything has been done, so we can look over the what CodeRabbit had to say. So basically looked at everything. Let's see, outside the range, supported drivers. Okay, so it just wants a little doc fix. It doesn't like what we put in here. It wants us to basically specify that we... Okay, so I don't want to bore you with this part, but basically what CodeRabbit found is that I certified some of the tests on 4.2.1, but all my new tests are on 4.3.0. So it basically just told me like, hey, within the supported drivers document, you're only specifying 4.2.1, so you should update it. So essentially, I just went through and updated it. So I'm going to just skip over this little section because it ate up about 10 minutes on the video. Okay, so it's good. So it's just basically saying that everything looks all right, so the rabbit is happy. All right. So at this point, we're just going to go ahead and merge, confirm the merge, and then we'll delete the branch. And all right, so that's the end of the video. I've completed everything and showed you the skills that we've got in there. So we've got the, just to catch up in what we've done, we basically have the driver build skill, which will build drivers based on Alpaca API, and it runs a ton of tests and goes through the whole repository and builds everything to compliance. And then we have the skill of committing all the code that we've worked on, and then we finally have a submit PR, so we can submit a PR and update the code. So I hope this video was informative, I hope it's helpful, and I hope you start helping build Alpaca. Come on, people. It's 2026. Alpaca was released in 2018. We got to get this thing off and running. So with that, take care. I hope you have clear skies, because right now I'm living in cloud soup. So we'll see you in the next one.